wanted to do was start about a 30-block sort of broadcast for people with his level of disabilities in Berkeley so that they have this great sort of media access for how to handle all the bureaucracy and laws and if you need wheelchair access and that kind of thing. And the cable companies went after him like a lion after a flea. And as you well know in Berkeley, there are activists every 3 inches pretty much. So we got furious, we came out of the woodwork and we're trying to figure out why is this absolute fly speck on their radar being persecuted like this? And we were furious. And what we found out is that the new gold rush, as opposed to uranium or oil or gold or whatever, is bandwidth. So, and because Berkeley is kind of right there in the, Silicon Valley innovation heartland, what we started to find out is that as all these tech guys are developing all these programs and needing all this bandwidth, and we've got cell phones and all this stuff, the real estate that everybody wants the most is what public access is sitting on. And the other fascinating thing we learned, which a lot of people don't know about, is in the olden days, sort of analog or standard cable, the little slice of pie that was cut out of the cable pie to become public access used to be each slice was 1 slice. Now the way it is, because the technologies and the computer programs and all the little brainiacs that are working on this, when I left Berkeley, each little station could be divided into 3 stations. Now it's more like 10 to 20. So what happens is you get Comcast to come into unsuspecting cities like Albuquerque, take back the bandwidth under the guise that it's unused, which is absurd because this is one of the best public access stations in the country, if you see our rating up there. And they literally, in their propaganda, they will call it unused bandwidth. And then they will sell it in these backdoor deals. And so in one of our displays, I didn't get it up on the wall, but this is secret meetings from Rob Perry and his cabal, I call it. They've been going behind closed doors and co-opting the monies from you folks who are cable subscribers. And it's in this fund called the PEG Fund, which means Public Education and Government. At this point, we're assuming it's about $50 million. This is not a tiny fund, folks. You have been paying into a very large fund. Rob Perry and his cabal have been drawing from it for things like Friends real estate contracts, things like Rick Metz getting the public access contract, even though he was the least qualified competitor, Rick Metz getting a build out on his private property to the tune of $107,000. The list goes on and on and on. But one of the most interesting things when we did our IPA request and we got the information about the IPEG committee, and keep in mind, that's a made-up name. They just came up with it. It's not some international anything. It means nothing. There was these notes in September of 2011, which is around the time, keep in mind, that quote-unquote is being kicked all around the city. Kicked out of this building, kicked out of here, told they're not going to have a lease here, their contract's up, blah, 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 blah. It says Comcast franchise proposal, September 6, 2011. Comcast has presented a proposal to extend the term of the existing cable franchise for an additional 5 years with a one-time payment of $250,000. I can't even tell you how ballistic I went when I read that because I had just come from the Bay Area and I knew 6 channels in the Bay Area at anywhere from $6 to $10 million a piece was worth $30 to $60 million. And the city is offering, Comcast is offering the city behind closed doors, your public asset, it belongs to you folks, $250,000. That's how stupid they thought you were. That's how easy they thought this was going to be. And keep in mind, this is going on all over the country. California has lost almost all of its public access stations. I kid you not, California, Los Angeles, chock full of activists. This all happened behind closed doors. They had no idea what was going on. There was a station in LA, 300,000 followers, guys, black as night. And when you read the propaganda, because Comcast made about $3.5 billion off the sale of that real estate. When you read the propaganda, They will say, even in quotes, it's unused bandwidth. This is a war against poor people. It's just like when you go to the Navajo reservation and you try to take the uranium or dig for oil, except that it happens to be this etheric thing called bandwidth. It's the same darn thing. And only people it affects is poor people, because that's what these stations were founded for. So I got involved because I was furious, A, that an administration as corrupt as us was being able to do this total, just Comcast massacre like it was nothing. And also because, quote unquote, put up one heck of a fight. And for those of you who don't know, what's playing on the screen over there, 5 days before, quote unquote's contract, which had been extended several times because Rick Metz wasn't ready to take over the station, 5 days before they're finally supposed to be out of the building, we hold a meeting on June 25th, an extensive meeting where quote unquote's trying to figure out, in the 5 days we have left, how are we going to empty the building of 30 years worth of equipment and materials and media and everything. And so we had this extensive meeting. Everybody had a plan, everybody was writing down lists, everything. This is what happens overnight. Dave Matthews, who runs the Gov channel, along with Matt Shepard, who, just so you know, just settled a $185,000 sexual harassment suit. The city bought him out, basically. So the plaintiff isn't supposed to talk about what happened, but anyway, that's the kind of person that we're talking about here. They come in around 11 o'clock. We leave the building 10:30. They come in at 11 o'clock, 11:30, change the locks, actually break into the building first. Who knows what they might have taken, what they might have done. This is our city administration breaking and entering. And there is a clause, just so you know, in all city contracts, any buildings that are leased, that are city-owned, it's called quiet enjoyment. You have the right to quiet enjoyment till the final day of your lease. No one has the right to disturb you. It is your property until the last day of that lease. They broke in, they changed the locks. Who knows what they did with our equipment? They certainly took databases. We had 30-some years worth of community programming. They took our hard drives. We've never been able to get them back. They stole one of the best public access stations resources in the country. We were under New York and Chicago at the time they were claiming that we were this terrible station. So I know we've got the activists here who can kick boot hay on this. I just feel like you need to be educated about what happened. So we're still waiting on Colleen. She's going to speak to some of the issues of what's going on down with RFK. We are trying to create a sort of alternative media center until we can actually get a space. But in the meantime, I would like to give Willard, in particular right now, just a chance to speak, because this man has already done community service twice today. I think he just got back from, were you doing fundraising for KUNM?
Yeah, this morning.
Yeah, so he did fundraising for KUNM. Then he went and talked to one of our council members asking about this very issue. Now he's here to speak for us. So I would like to give him a chance to speak first, only because he's going to go then again and do some other philanthropic thing after this. So I'd like to give him the chance to. So Willard asked me to introduce him as a political analyst?
Scientist.
Political science?
Scientist.
Why don't you call yourself? You say your title.
Political scientist.
And start with the fact that he's actually one of our real audiences. This man has been watching our public access station lovingly for a very long time, and that's how he got on board.
Lara, thank you for the chance to talk tonight. My name is Willard Hunter, and it's a real pleasure to be here tonight. I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes, and then I'd really like to maybe have a little bit of Q&A, and you can ask me some questions, and I'll give you my input. In terms of background, my first contact with public access television was in Midland, Michigan, about 125 miles north of Detroit. It's where I grew up, and then I left, and then I came back as an adult, and I started getting involved with public access in the late 1980s, so it was fairly early. And I didn't do a lot of production. I did do one show, but I was certainly captured with the idea of public access television even back then. And as Lara said, I've been very impressed with what quote unquote did in terms of programming. There were certain programs every week that I wanted to watch. I used to always watch Alan Cooper's interview show. In fact, he had me on a couple of times as a guest, and I was just overwhelmed with the variety. I remember there was one New Mexican that used to sit there and play New Mexico music and kind of shake his body to the music, and it wasn't my kind of program, but it was fun. It was just fun watching him. I mean, that was the whole show, and I remember there was a conservative on for a while, and he spoke. And then the music ended, and I got mad. And one of the things, if you know me at all, one of the things I'm very interested in is data. I always like to work with information. So one of the things I did was I started keeping track of UPublic programming. And so for a week, I took their whole schedule, and I did an analysis of was it an original program, which UPublic does not like to do. They certainly don't like to do live programming. Was it local origination? Did it originate in this community, or was it from outside of this community? And the key thing was it original? The classic example of original is there are thousands of copies of the Mona Lisa, but there's only one original. And in television, an original program is a first run program, which means a program can only be first run once. Every time it's shown after that, it's a rerun. And there are heavy contract requirements, both on quote unquote when they had the channels and on UPublic, that they have to do a lot of original programming. And as Steve and others at quote unquote can attest, creating an original program is a lot of work. It's a major effort. So with that kind of as a preamble, as Lara said, I met today with Diane Gibson, city councilor. I met with her, and I'm planning to meet with 4 other city councilors over hopefully the next couple of weeks. And there were 3 points, and then a recommendation that I made. First, I talked about contract compliance. Is UPublic in compliance with their contract? And in several ways, they're not. They're not doing first-run programming, very much first-run programming. They're showing commercial advertising, which is strictly forbidden in their contract, and they're also showing commercial television programs. These are programs that appear on Fox News or KOB, and some of those include Who Rocks New Mexico, New Mexico True TV, Home Builders Gallery, and then the After Party. And some of these shows like After Party are really old, as far as I know. And the other point I made in that area was that they seem to be and then they're also doing extensive for-profit advertising. And in the last couple of weeks, they are cleaning up their act. So they're stopped doing the for-profit advertising, and now they're just running a nauseating stream of public service announcements.
Busters, right?
Yeah, and one of the things you need to understand, the business model for UPublic is that out of a 30-minute program, they're going to do 24 minutes of programming and 6 minutes of advertising, which is very close to what you find on commercial television. And watching these ads on a public access station is just really depressing. But that's their business model. 6 minutes out of every 30 minutes advertising. And that's, for me, that really detracts from anything that's going on. That means they have 8-minute segments approximately. 8 minutes commercial, another 8 minutes commercial, another 8 minutes commercial. It's nauseating. And the other thing that I pointed out in terms of contract compliance, they really seem to be developing their commercial business. Public is supposed to be a nonprofit, but they're working really hard over at their 3rd Street facilities to generate income by doing short videos for corporations, for doing advertising and that sort of thing. So that's a key part of their business strategy, to do this generate all of this income. So that was the first part. The second part is irregularities with the initial contract, and there are a lot of irregularities. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but there is certainly evidence that I gave the city councilor that there was inside information and kind of collusion even before the RFP for Channel 26 and 27 was presented. And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, particularly in the government, was that the city government awarded UPublic the contract for operating the Educational Access Channel 96. And they were essentially immediately given $108,000, as Lara said, for build-out, which is not capital equipment. It's improving the facilities of this private space, which is strictly forbidden by the city. And I made that point today, and the city councilor kind of, I think that kind of struck her, that had happened. And the curious thing about Channel 96, which is, a couple of curious things. One is, as far as I know, as far as I remember, I do not remember a single hour of original programming, local programming that is oriented toward education. And the Cable Franchise Board knew that. In fact, they put that in their comments, that UPublic had never done anything. They'd had the contract for 10 months and hadn't done anything with it. And why the city would award them the contract to run 26 and 27 has a certain, odor?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Associated with it.
Yeah.
Okay, and the news to me yesterday was that I went to look at Channel 96 and look at the Alice in Wonderland movie that they've been showing ad nauseum for months, and Channel 96 is gone. I mean, it's not black, it's gone. You click on 96 and it'll take you to 97. You click down a channel, it'll take you to 95. 96 is gone. It's just disappeared. Where? I've asked Jane Yee, a city attorney, about it, and she hasn't gotten back to me. So I don't know what's going on, but UPublic has certainly abandoned that channel, which they got a contract extension, kind of a backdoor extension in the 2012 contract. So I don't know what's going on with that. And then the third area I talked to her about was the IPEG committee. They call it an internal working group, and as far as I can see, it has no legal standing. It has absolutely no authority to distribute funds, as it has been doing since, I think, 2002, or maybe even earlier. So the actions I requested today, one is we desperately need to reactivate the Cable Franchise and Hearing Board. And that's probably the first thing that needs to be done. 2 of the 3 members in 2012 resigned after the city ignored the recommendation of the Cable Franchise and Hearing Board to reappoint, quote unquote. That's the first thing. And I have volunteered to be a part of that. And Bob Ely is also over here, has agreed to apply for that position, and Rosemary Sanchez would be the third, who was the one remaining member from that committee. The second thing is we need to immediately put out a new RFP for the operation of Channel 26 and 27. The city legal department prematurely put out the RFP to take those channels away from from quote unquote. And there's no reason, since they set that precedent, that we can't request the city council to do the same thing, come out as quickly as possible. The third thing that needs to be done is there needs to be an examination of the legal standing of this IPEG group. This internal working group, as far as I can see, has no authority in the city government to do what it's been doing, making decisions about the dispersion of these PEG funds that Comcast subscribers pay each month. And the fourth thing I ask for is conduct a full unannounced physical audit of the city-owned equipment at the U-Public facilities. There's a lot of concern that the equipment, the extensive, massive amount of equipment that this IPEG committee just lavished, yeah, that's the word, lavished on U-Public. We need to make sure that that equipment is where it's supposed to be. And then the last thing, the fifth thing, is to investigate the abuse of the anti-donation clause, where the IPEG committee approved the improvement of the facilities at this private building. So those are the things I talked about, and I had a lot of stuff, but I kind of narrowed it down to just a folder kind of like this. But I basically had documentations to support every point I made. So with that lengthy preamble, I'd be happy to answer questions, comments.
Have you identified the principles of U-Public have you identified, too much mic gain, down a little, there we go. Have you identified the connections between the principles of U-Public and city fathers or anybody in the city that you can identify?
No, I have heard of rumors, but that's all they are, and I'm not privy to even share those rumors.
I use a phrase often I call money for buddies.
Well, I can speak a little bit to that.
Okay, Lara,
Again,
thank you.
There's nothing that's documented per se, but when this whole thing went down, you have to remember that Mayor Barry's wife is huge with Calvary Church. When I first went online to look up Rick Metz, because he has no background in television whatsoever, he's done advertising, which is not the same animal. Trying to put on a TV show every week is a way different thing than a 1-minute ad. So I was just looking online. He's done missionary work for Calvary Church all over the world. There's pictures of him in South America. His wife sits as one of the children's Bible teachers at Calvary Church. I have personally a suspicion, and again, this is not founded. I can't show you documentation, but I have a suspicion. There's something, I don't know how many of you are familiar with a TriCaster? It's like the talk box that tells all the different media sources and cameras and everything, all the computers everybody's working. News stations can't live without it because they've got all these feeds coming in. They need one box that speaks the language of all of those so they can get that programming up. U-Public has 3 of them. I told that to a reporter at KOB and his jaw hit the floor. They're a full-time 24/7 TV station and they have one TriCaster. So big question, where are those TriCasters? Because they're not being used for programming by U-Public. Are they at Calvary Church? Another potential person who benefited from this is the gentleman who runs I-25 Studios. He's a huge Republican donor. He got the build out on 519 in a no-bid process for $1 million. Maybe it's over at I-25 Studios. We don't know. That's why we would like to do an inventory about all of this. This is your equipment, guys. This isn't the city's equipment. They are a holding tank for this resource that belongs to you. And we don't know where it is, and it's not going to public programming. So why did he order all this fancy equipment, and where the heck is it?
Okay. Go ahead.
I just have a couple questions. The first one is, okay, here we go. I work with treaties, and I'm a Native American Lakota Sioux from Wounded Knee, and I really don't like the government. And I always hear about how much embezzling there is all the way around the country, from California to New York, Mexico, all the way to Alaska. And it's the same story every single time. And it gets really old. And what I'm hearing about the money. And how does it belong to the people? It belongs to you through birth certificate, social security cards, bank accounts. That's how it is. Your birth certificate and social security card is what they're talking about, how the money goes into the city account. Now, the city account is obligated to pay the Native Americans money. California, I know about the 18 unratified treaties of California. California is still technically Indian territory. Because of the bankruptcy of 1933, they failed to disclose to the Native Indian people that this land is Indian country. It doesn't belong to America. America is a for-profit corporation allowing embezzlement to happen, which means that, so when are you going to tell the truth to the people to help them to understand why it's happening this way? Because it takes the earth, the water, and fire to make Comcast, everything in a home, to the business, to, things like that. So what I'm asking the question is, I understand you got documents. I would like to see them. I mean, I'd like just to take a look. But my main question is, where's the treaties in all this? Because the treaty is supreme law in the U.S. Constitution. And because America is not a country, Article 13 describes Sugenius, which is the original people of the land. And because America is not a country, that means it goes back to the indigenous people of the land. So all that money, that's where it should be going, right?
I wish I could have better news for you. Treaties are not part of the city government, and
Oh, yes, they are. I just found it out.
well, let's say
The U.S. Constitution, when you take an oath, yes,
I'm
it
not
is.
aware of that, and I don't know that it's important, but I'm not sure it's a part of.
When
we're
you
talking
take an
about.
oath, whether you're a police officer or a law advocate or a city council member, as soon as you take that oath, I solemnly swear to protect and serve the U.S. Constitution. Yes, you become liable and responsible for the U.S. Constitution, Article 1 through however many there is. I just like 6, that's all.
Well, so what I would say to that is, and here's the perfect moment. Come here, Colleen.
Uh-oh.
Colleen Gorman
You're
is
in trouble.
the backbone of, quote unquote, she is tireless. She will never tell you how much work she does for us. Let's get her up at the table here. She is Colleen Gorman. She is Navajo. One of the things that has always been exceptional about, quote unquote, relative to public access stations around the country is the representation of Native Americans, of the Native voice. One of the first things I would do is invite you, as soon as we get the station back, to get a darn show going. Seriously. That's the whole point of this. We need you to be telling this on camera for your show to everybody, to the world. Colleen's been excellent with that in terms of how she's built the Native sort of voice into all of this. And so I would love for her to speak to that.
Can I just say something real quick? Yate? Espeshanda?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Tokaya Tinkashila Wopila Waku, Lemia Chamatonia Hemie, Chunkpe Opio Matiwa. My dear relative, say good afternoon. We always thank the Creator first when we always talk in our languages, right? My name is Bear Woman. My English name is Joanne Spotted Bear, and I am from Wounded Knee. I'm a descendant of the Little Bighorn, the Wounded Knee Massacre, 1890, World War I, World War II, 1973 during the AIM occupation. My dad was a cop, my grandma was a peyote member, and we carried a chinupa. Today, I became a law advocate thanks to the BIA. Hey. And I became a dignitary at the United Nations level, speaking on behalf of 564 federal recognized tribes to speak on treaties. That's what we were just talking about. So what I was just saying here is that I found a loophole in my studies of law, and that's the bankruptcy of the 1933 bankruptcy. They failed to disclose the bankruptcy, and even in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Union War, and the 1933 bankruptcy, they failed to disclose to the Native American Indians that they forfeited the doctrine of discovery, eminent domain, and come on, help me think, eminent domain, and I can't remember the other two, right? But I do have it, and I am writing today, and what I was saying is, when anybody's discussing to the people, they need to address the treaties that are supreme, because technically, the birth certificates, the U numbers, are the part of the people to pay the taxes into the city. The city takes that money and then pays it towards the natives for using the land, and that's what we're talking about, correct?
Thank you for all that information. That's actually really exciting information to find out that they forfeited the eminent domain. That's, you know, we can take back America. But I think with our media rights, that's definitely something I've been trying to do in the past couple of months. By the way, let me do a real quick introduction of myself. So my name's Colleen Gorman. I'm Diné Navajo, originally from Arizona. I've been here for about 15 years, and I am currently the board president for Quote Unquote. Quote Unquote is a community media center. We used to operate public access TV, and this spring, we're working on launching a low-power FM radio station. So I was a little late because I was coordinating some details on that. But the low-power FM radio station will be broadcasting in the South Valley. An LPFM radio station has a radius of about 6 miles. Sometimes it can be a little bit farther if it's up on a hill. So we're working with RFK Charter School to set up an antenna there so that we can broadcast. I am a teacher at RFK Charter School as well. I teach social studies. And so I'm really working on both sides to try and help to make that happen. But for the past couple of months, I've been working with the Native American Voters Alliance. And we've been meeting with a collective of people that have come together called the Assembly of Native American Voices. We just came up with that acronym. It kind of reminds me of the National Assembly, you know, during the French Revolution when they said, "The king, we declare ourselves to be the rightful rulers of ourselves, and the king is no longer in charge of us." I kind of feel that way with the Assembly of Native American Voices, because in the city of Albuquerque, the Native American Voices have had no voice since 1997. The Urban Indian Commission has been defunct since 1997, which means that nobody has advised Mayor Marty Chavez, Mayor Berry on anything regarding Native issues. And I think the impact of that is very clear in the evidence of violence and police brutality against Native Americans, and the oppression that has occurred. So the Assembly of Native American Voices met, had a summit in January. They had about 100 people come from the city, and I believe that represented about 30, maybe 40 organizations. And we broke up into a couple of groups with the purpose of creating sort of a job description for the types of people. There's 5 people who would be on the commission to advise the mayor. The mayor is trying to address that issue right now. And we don't want him just to, pull randomly. We want the community of Native people to put that together so that they can, the mayor can choose from a select group of people who have the qualities that the collective has come up with, the community has come up with. In addition to that, the other aspect is that the funding for the American Indian Center is being pulled. So whether or not Albuquerque Indian Center continues to exist in that space remains to be seen. But if they are not able to, ANAV is hoping to be there to fill that void with resources and people coming together. So my role in this was to kind of collaborate to create that idea of community media for community development. I think that's really, really important, because in supporting First Amendment rights, which is what quote unquote is about, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, but that's also supporting our right as people, as the community, to decide for ourselves and tell politicians what we want. With the current public access operator, I went to an orientation and I told them, you know, I'm Native American, I'm a Native American poet, I'm a Native American artist. I'm probably going to have some controversial subjects or people come on air if I produce a TV show, and I have produced a TV show for about 10 years. I've helped Native Zine, Shauna Sunrise. She's helped produce a TV show for longer than I have, and she works with Gathering of Nations. She brings on many artists. She's also on the board. And so I told them that this was something I wanted to do, and they told me, well, you know what? You're going to have to send your poets and your artists to us. They need to have a conversation with us before they say what they're going to say on the air. That is censorship. In addition to that, when we ran public access TV, one of the things that we were really proud about was the fact that we provided forums, a forum, a place for discussion. If there was city politics or an election coming up, mayoral election, I actually was able to interview Mayor Marty Chavez before he lost his office. And that forum, that space, should be available to the public. It needs to be a forum for discussion so that we can develop our communities, so we can do our needs assessments and things like that. And so in working with ANAV and Native American Voices, I'm outreaching to the Native American community to tell them, look, you have this great resource. Right now we're bare bones. We're pretty much like a broke organization, but we're still continuing on, and we're doing way more than this other organization who has been given hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And we have almost no money at all.
And so so this is where I'm going to do my little promo.
So this is where Colleen drives me crazy because she's so modest, but this is her prize right now, and you guys need to be at this event. You need to promote this event. This is a big deal.
So the reason I was late was because I was making flyers and making online tickets for people to purchase a $10 ticket to go meet and greet with Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! Amy Goodman will be coming on Sunday, April 24th. That's in a couple of weeks, right around Gathering of Nations time. And she's going to be speaking at RFK Charter School. And she's going to be presenting her new book, and all the proceeds from the event will benefit, quote unquote. And so that'll help us quite a bit. So.
Please, please, please publicize this. Please get everybody you know to come to this. This should be really, really great.
Yeah.
Of all the places she could come to, you know, it speaks volumes for how much work Colleen has done in the community and being on the radar that way, and what RFK is doing it down there, that Amy Goodman picked that as her location.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, hi, Simon.
So you could add, since this is a non-for-profit organization, you could ask for a PSA. You could ask for a PSA on the government TV and you public.
Oh, yeah, there you
I'd
go.
like to see
Since
their
you're
face.
into, that's what I would do.
Oh, boy.
I think you should ask for,
Sounds good.
since they're a community station, you should ask for them
Well,
to
that's a
advertise
great
this
idea.
event.
So I brought some flyers. I had just enough time to like print out a few flyers. So if anyone wants to, just take the information from this page and please distribute it far and wide. Let as many people as you know about it. Seating is limited to 300 people. So I don't know. I personally think that tickets will go really fast. I also bought this card from this thing of index cards. So I'm actually just going to give it to her to pass it around to people, because if we don't have your contact information, or you're interested, or you have a comment, or you're interested in accessing community media resources or services, basically like you want to learn how to produce a TV show, or you want to learn how to produce a radio, or you want to have access to a time slot on a radio show, right now, this is the way to do it.
And just so if you folks understand, one of the ways when we interface with the city that we get cred is that we have so many people signed up with us. I know some of you don't like to get on mailing lists or whatever. We are not like sending stuff out all the time. We are keeping you involved in the community when needed. It's not like this gets sold to anybody or anything. But if you can sign up there, if you can sign up here, your names attached to us is gold, because the more names we show in the community involved in this, the more they take us seriously. They keep thinking it's just, like 5 people doing whatever. No, this is like he said, at one point we were 900 producers strong before all of this went down. And we would like to build that again, but it comes through you getting signed on so that we can start notifying you with things. We're going to start trying to hold orientations to teach people how to get their shows going. I feel like you give quote unquote the tiniest inch, they are going to once again be 5th in the nation very, very quickly. So let's rally this one. Let's get our programs up. Let's get involved. So let me pass this out, but if you can sign up, that would be great.
And if there's any organization as well that you think could benefit from services or benefit from having a radio show, just put their name down, a website or a phone number. We can always Google them. We just need to be aware of them. And so again, community media for community development, because I love KUNM, but you know what? Their time slots are full, and so this is a new opportunity to open up a radio station. So right now we're looking into some new spaces for rental, to kind of house out where we want to do some stuff. And so we're hoping that the fundraiser will help us with that and with some other operational things. We do need volunteers. And also, if you want to volunteer to help out with the event, in terms of covering the door, that'll get you a free pass in.
Yeah, if anybody can help out on that, it's Sunday the 24th.
Sunday, April 24th.
April 24th. Anybody that can volunteer to help out taking tickets at the door or something like that, please let Colleen know.
Or even just, I'm getting people's contact information, because I'm going to do like a really short spiel at the beginning before Amy Goodman speaks. And so I'm going to just kind of pitch to the people, quote unquote.
Yay.
I heard you mention earlier about quote unquote basically not having any money, or just sort of the way they got cut out of everything. But it's important to remember that quote unquote is still producing GovTV and public forums such as this with Mike, and Charlie participates, and a lot of other people. And I mean, although it does only go on YouTube, which is again a problem because not everybody has internet, and it's considered a luxury, but that people want free speech or public access, that they continue to do it for free. They're not compensated. They do it because it's necessary. And it gives a different perspective where, like GovTV, the moment anything goes wrong, it like cuts to wherever, And there was a time at City Council where I think it was Mike who cut a video of what was showing on GovTV, like to their viewers, and what the speaker, which happened to be Lara, was showing and speaking of, and then the reaction of the city councilors live in a split scene, showing that they don't show the same thing, so therefore that's sort of a source of censorship, because they don't want you to know all of those things. And it's pretty disgusting, because I've been to most of the city council meetings, and when I see Lara go up there, and week after week she brings new stuff, it's not the same gripe. It's like, and then I found this, right? So she's bringing all of this testimony and legitimate documents, and only to find out, like, there was at least two people that were sitting on, at least one sitting on the board, and two that knew about it, and all of city council like, what are you talking about? It's so disgusting. Like, I'm outraged, and every time I hear Laura talk, I get more outraged, because that belongs to us. And like, I mean, what more do they want? So something definitely does have to happen, and our group is committed to it, up to and including, yeah. Arrest, just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. I would actually go to jail for free speech. I would, you know, because it's a just cause. But I think whether you agree with the speech or not, it's not subject to approval or disapproval. It simply exists, but we should be defending the right to say it. And so that channel is ours, and like we should just see about future planning so we can go get it back.
It's ours.
Yeah.
And the other
It's
thing I
ours.
wanted to
I got
say,
Rob
because
Perry's address.
I say this with great affection. If out there, you know, Don, I really, this is great affection. But whenever I would get criticism about public access, everyone would say, oh, it's that channel with the naked guy. Now, two things. First of all, Don Schrader is one of the dearest human beings on the planet. And if that's all you're seeing when you look at that angelic human being, you are not human. Second thing is, that's what free speech really is. It's not all that glossy Hollywood BS. Free speech is Don Schrader, and we know we're a truly free country when we are airing programs that have Don Schrader on them. Absolutely.
Right.
Second thing is, somebody brought up, can we have hands raised as to who has done programming for quote unquote?
Of course, me, yeah.
I mean, this is, you know, not half our audience, but it's a good bit. There, you know, my entire family, from the time we were younger, was trained over at quote unquote. That there is a history in this community that's the one thing we were arguing when they stole our property, is that's intellectual property that's irreplaceable.
They took that out of our servers. I couldn't
mean,
believe
it's
it. There were just
insane.
a few thousand things in those servers, and they took them out, and they had
30-some
no
years
business
of Albuquerque
legally
history.
to touch them or take them anywhere. So they didn't belong to the city of Albuquerque, they belonged to the producers. Bingo.
Yes. Many thanks to Harold for being here. This is the president of the Albuquerque chapter of the NAACP, and I thank him so much for coming.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions. Who can make a difference? Have you sat down with the mayor or Rob Perry or anybody? I just want to know, just yes or no.
Well, let me talk about this
Yeah.
a little bit, because
Because only reason why I'm saying is I have another meeting I have to go to. Now, the NAACP, we're concerned about free speech.
Yeah.
You know, public access.
Yeah.
You know, put it down. What's the truth? Teach the world the truth.
Yeah.
So, only thing I just want to know, technically speaking, have you sat down with the decision makers and given this information? If you have, you know.
I can't explain to you how many loaded documents I've given to the city over a 5-year period. I can't even explain to you the amount of thousands of dollars worth of information to them going nowhere.
Okay, so my question is
Yeah.
that, have you sat down with the mayor, Rob Perry,
Honestly,
recently
I'm gonna
to
be
give him
honest-
this information?
I'm gonna
Because
be
the
honest
information
with
that I'm
you.
receiving right now is alarming. So I'm just saying, I just want to know why something has not been done.
And what happens for me is it's triggering. These are people who basically raped us. It's like asking me to sit in front of my rapist. These are the people who ordered the break-in to our building. These are the people who stole public money. So for me personally, it's very difficult. Steve can answer to it better as just a professional organization. I could not do it. I would go ballistic. So personally, not going to happen.
Well, it's really a quite easy thing to tell you about, you know, in terms of Mayor Berry. Mayor Berry, in all the time that we were going through this mess, he never once would talk to us, not one time.
And we have
He
documents
refused
to attest
to
to
come
that.
to any, you know, to come get into discussion with us, meet us in any way whatsoever. Same with Rob Perry. They would not talk to us, nothing at all. Okay, they kept us completely, you know, like, as if we didn't exist at all. That's the way they dealt with us. We don't exist at all anymore. No reason to talk to these people. We don't care about these people. Good riddance. That was the way they behaved. That's the way, that's what they did to us, and probably have done to many other people in the city of Albuquerque. Not just people who are doing this, what we're doing, but all over the place.
I think the fact that they actually met with you public prior to issuing the RFP
Yeah.
and met with them privately during the RFP process says a lot, because that actually breaks the
Yes.
city rules on an
Exactly.
RFP.
We actually have the paper on that where we see where they
was
were
documented.
talking.
It's up there on the
documenting.
board, actually.
You could see that
There's
they
a
were
document up
having
there.
private discussions with you public and so forth about how they were going to get this done. And it was between Rob Perry and Metz. And they just say, like, they're acting like, well, there's nothing to it, but it's obvious what happened, obvious that they had it all planned out well ahead of time. I actually, at one point, happened to be at a city council meeting and so forth, and they were standing right next to me, and they were talking about it, and I was listening to this, I'm like, what in the hell? I'm listening to these guys, how they're going to get rid of us, you know, and I'm standing right there in the hallway outside of the, you know, where they, you know, and on the 9th floor, and they're talking right next to me, and they're talking about how they want to switch it over to another group, and I was like, whoa, you know. So from that moment on, that we knew that they were out to get us pretty much, and that they had an entire other, you know, they had something else entirely different that they wanted to do.
Simon had a question.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to point out that last year in front of the Finance Committee, Mr. Metz stood in front of the Finance Committee with Mr. Perry at his side.
Right.
And I believe that to be a total conflict of interest. You know, we were all supposed to stand, you know, by ourselves as individuals if we're dealing with the government. And to me, it looked like as if Mr. Perry was representing Mr. Metz.
Exactly.
And Simon, we have that picture, remember, in the hallway that's like, as soon as Metz got finished talking, he was immediately out in the hallway with Carolyn Fudge, consulting with her. So in the early days when we were challenging them about their lack of programming and stuff, he would come and testify and come up with all these flowery language of all the shows he was going to do and fix public access. And then as soon as he'd done, he'd head out in the hallway. And we've got this long shot of him standing there with Carolyn Fudge consulting with her, like, did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? I mean, this has been collusion with the city the entire time. As far as I'm concerned, U Public is a city station. It is Rob Perry's station, or it is whatever it is, but it is not, I mean, U Public is not, they don't even know how to run a TV station. This was Rob Perry's agenda, and he
So-
forced it through.
I kind of wanted to make a couple of other points, because before the contract was pulled, a statement was actually made to Steve by the city, and there's a couple of things. So we had been told for over a decade that the amount of money that was Comcast Cable was collecting from its subscribers and giving to the city on an annual basis was $300,000. Carolyn Fudge let slip accidentally, because Steve walked in and she was kind of upset. She said, "Can you believe it? They sent a $925,000 quarterly check to the wrong address." So you do the
And I
math.
happened to be standing right there. and I was- and I went,
925,000 times 4
okay.
is about a few million dollars.
That was a,
And
That was
so the oversight even of Comcast by a Comcast employee and that whole contract is questionable.
yeah.
But in addition to that, when Channel 27 was created, it was created before public access ever existed and
Right.
was supported by the federal government. It was a grassroots organization started by Bill and Denise Makeley in Albuquerque.
1979.
They created
Yeah.
their own broadcast TV station.
One of the
And so-
earliest in the country.
And so that was in the 70s. So in 1984, the Comcast Cable Act was passed, or not the Comcast, it was the Cable Bill, or the Cable Act of 1984, and that was where the federal government actually mandated that nationwide that cable companies were required to use the money from using the rights of way for laying their cable, that cable companies were required to allocate some money for PEG channels, public education and government access channels. So the treaties that the woman who was here earlier that was talking about, those tie into it, but also just public rights. So that's why, as public, our freedom of speech is being infringed upon, because you publicans are definitely censoring freedom of speech and not allowing all the colors of the people to be heard, all the wide range of people to be heard. When I worked at Public Access TV, I loved that, you know, one show would be Yahweh, the next show would be the Muslim show, the next show would be 911. I just loved the diversity of it, and we don't see that anymore. We don't hear the voice of people anymore. So I just want to say we have to fight for freedom of speech. So in addition to Channel 27, we created Channel 26 as well. So we would love to have your support to try and push for a new RFP, because when 2017 rolls around, that channel will be up for grabs, and Comcast Cable can sell that channel for millions of dollars.
So actually what we'd like to do is see if we can get this thing going before the 2017, push this forward now, because they could pull all kinds of stuff, you know, in 2017.
And the fiscal
And we
year
need to get
starts
this
July
done
1st.
as fast as possible, yes.
Question?
Yes, I have a question. What do we need to do? What can we do
Good question.
to
Simon,
bring back, you know, public access to the public?
Simon, before we get into that, because I think that's the key question, can we have some other folks in case they have some more broad suggestions, and then let's come back to that question, because that's the key here.
Hi, thanks, Simon. Along with what you were saying about disenfranchising the poor and what the city of Albuquerque does, and maybe there's some kind of federal force to be brought to bear on this, and you know, you can, with somebody like Rob Perry, I mean, what can you do with this person? How can you remove this person from the influence that he has? This is an unelected official who is a litigation lawyer. You know, I'm sure if you brought together a legal defense fund or a legal fund on behalf of public access, that he'd rally whatever he has and try to sue the living crap out of you or whatever. But this, you know, people have to be reminded of Rob Perry's history. He's from Boston. He started his major legal career and notoriety in Clearwater, Florida, which incidentally is the original home for the Wackenhut Corporation, which is the first major private prison contractor in the country. And then this unappointed official comes to New Mexico under the Gary Johnson administration, the Secretary of Corrections, builds 2 of the major private prisons here, and then somehow gets all this power. You know, it might be unspoken, definitely has influence over the police force. He has all this influence over the city, and depending, you know, regardless of what channels that comes through, it could come through Alex, it could come through the mega churches, it could come from, you know, what can the city do in a recourse against a person like this? The people who are unelected in the state, like Jay McCleskey, are some of the prime sources of outright corruption in New Mexico and Albuquerque.
I just want to speak to one aspect of that, because, and Alan, come up here, because one of the reasons we think, quote unquote, was targeted, besides the fact that they were sitting on extremely expensive real estate, is shows like Alan's that were really challenging the city. And no, with no shame, like really calling them out on stuff. And so one of the things that we feel was lost here was this incredible voice that we had, that so we can't, you know, instead of having, as Simon has pointed out numerous times, instead of having our 2 minutes begging the council to listen, we had an entire show you could do every week, and you could get these grievances out. I would like to have Alan speak to this. And for those of you who don't know Alan, and he will never talk about himself, but this man marched with Martin Luther King. This man is one of our truly great free speech activists, not just here in New Mexico, here in the country. And he had a show that was particularly challenging to the city, so challenging, in fact, that they tried to get rid of him. So that's what we can do, is get our shows back, get our voices heard, get people like Alan to start bringing this stuff up again. Because it was enough of a threat that they went through unbelievable hoops to get rid of us. So let's get that voice back. That's one of the first things we can do. Alan, come speak to you. Here, you want to sit?
No,
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's all right.
Speak about your show and just tell them what you went through.
I think the reason we're off the air is because we were so effective. I think we scared the hell out of them, and they joined forces. And we're talking about real dark side people. Really, these are dangerous people. They're not conservative Republicans. They're much more. It's much more cynical than that. I remember one story where Ray Garduno, who was a member of the city council, was walking up on the 11th floor, and he went into this room because he didn't know, he was looking for the right place to go to a meeting or something, and he came into this room, and and he walked into this room, and it was an IPAG committee, which has no power or no legal status. They ordered him to leave the room, and Ray Garduno looked at him and he said, "I'm not leaving the room. I'm a city councilor," and so they stopped the meeting. They shut it immediately, right on the spot.
They did not want anybody to hear what they were talking about, period.
I guess,
especially not the city council.
I'm from Albuquerque, and I know a lot of things about New Mexico that break my heart. Like we get more federal funds, federal military funds, the highest in the country. This country is this particular part of this beautiful planet is being run by a real dangerous cabal of military, police, and has been for a long time. I don't have any easy answers, but when I hear people talking about, well, why don't we do this? We go and talk to and you can't talk to the mayor because he won't talk to you. He does. Anyway, I just want to put it in context from my perspective. I think that we did some great work, and the team that we put together for quote unquote was a great dynamite team. We did some really great documentary programming, and we covered all kinds of issues from you name it, and we were there. We were every week when we discovered that 14 young women bodies were discovered on the west side of Albuquerque. Every show started with the pictures of those women and the police number and the FBI number, asking people to call, and it turns out people were calling because they were complaining about the calls they were getting for it. And when the jet plumes thing happened or started happening, we were on it, and we covered the jet plume, and it's still going on. That poison. In fact, I was at a meeting at the VA this morning. No, was it this morning? Yesterday. And it was a group. It's a PTSD military group, and I warned them about the water underneath the hospital, and they all looked at each other and started, talking about it because nobody was saying anything. I said, "Bring your own water," because the water that's under the what's it called? The submarine.
Subterranean.
Battleship Park?
Come on, yeah, it's an aquifer, really. Yeah.
Anyway, it's already underneath at Girard and not Girard. Yeah, it's all the way down Girard, and it's under the hospital, the VA hospital. And I was warning people not to drink the water, and a lot of them knew about it. So I just want to, I know it's kind of scattered, and I sort of think that way. But I think we can win, and I'm sure we will. But don't underestimate the people that we're confronting. They're really it's kind of, no, more than that. It's like a
Pernicious.
sociopath.
There you go.
You know, we're talking about really serious-minded people.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope we can get back on the air, because I would be, I'm there.
All right.
So I think media is really important for transparency, and we have an FCC license that the city cannot take away. So that is a new resource that's available, and I love that we did this with a very tight budget, slim budget. So we're still alive.
May I add something? I'm Rick Albright, I'm on the board, and I would like to point out that Mr. Ranieri has worked tirelessly for no money whatsoever for the last 4 years as pretty basically the sole employee of this organization. And we need some help to, at least to pay Steve for the work that he's done, at the minimum.
Money, what's that?
Well, but in terms of money,
But,
folks, yeah.
my point is,
Yeah.
though, that what you can do is support, quote unquote,
Yeah.
with money and with volunteer work. Those are the two things we need desperately.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. I just wanted to let everybody know that I have it in writing from the city attorney's office that the city does not track in any way, shape, or form the subscriber base that Comcast has. All of that data lies with Comcast. And their franchise fees are based on a percentage of each subscriber.
Right.
And those funds are for this type of programming.
Right.
So I'm still trying to make sure that I'm understanding these people clearly.
They have been blocking that for quite some time.
Yeah.
Quite some time.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times where I was in a meeting and I asked about it, and they just said, you know, we're not talking about that.
Well, I have it in writing from them saying that they do not control any data,
Right.
that it all lies with Comcast.
Right. Comcast is the one that's you know, pushing all this in a way. I mean, they have, well, it's what Lara was saying about the money
Right.
that's invested in this.
Well, and
You know,
as Steve
that's what
is
it's all
talking about, so when I
Right.
brought up earlier that they had made an offer to the city of $250,000 for what was probably worth $30 million in resale value,
And they're willing to-
they then went and got this guy Garth Ashbaugh. So keep this name on your radar. Garth Ashbaugh is a appraiser, kind of public access stations. He goes around and tells people,
Yeah.
Garth Ashbaugh.
Yeah, Garth Ashbaugh. Yeah.
And so he actually came back after we kind of challenged the city about why are you undervaluing this asset? And when he came, this was in January 12th of 2012, when quote unquote was about to get kicked out. Garth Ashbaugh, the city's consultant, has provided an analysis of the value of the unused PEG channels. A copy of the report is attached, which of course we didn't get in our IPRA request, but whatever. It considered two alternatives with two scenarios. We don't know what those were, but for a range of value from almost $24 million, which is what I knew it was, or $793,018, which, you know, is that for one channel? Is that for what? Dave Matthews, who keep in mind is GovTV, and so Dave Matthews, you guys have to know this about this man. He's the one who kicked us out of that building. He's the one having those locks changed.
Yeah.
He's been running the GovTV channel since 2002 and sitting on the secret IPEG board that writes him checks. Okay? This guy, when you meet him, he just seems like, oh, he couldn't hurt a fly. This man had a vendetta so severe against quote unquote, probably because we were finding out that he was illegally sitting on a board that was giving him money, that he locked them out of the building 5 days before their contract was up. This guy stinks. But all I'm saying is, this is your property, folks. This is your $30
Yes.
million property. You need to start getting your voices heard with your council members. Demand to know what's going on with the appraisal of the channels. How are they planning on allocating? Have they already signed this contract? This is a whole lot of money that belongs to you, and you're the ones who are supposed to decide if it gets sold or not, and if it does, the money's supposed to go to you, not to Rick Metz's private build-out. We got to get our voices heard, because this is your property that they're stealing from you. So that's what you can do. Start finding out who's your council member. Ask them what they're doing about getting the cable board going. Ask them what's going on with the evaluation of the channel. Just so you know, Garth Ashbow, I just got this formally from the city, is now the new person they're bringing in to appraise the channels again.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a rigged system, but it breaks open when you start yelling at people and asking them to be accountable.
Yes.
I believe that U-Public was hired to eviscerate public access,
Yeah.
to make it look like it was worthless,
Yeah.
so that they could sell the public access stations and say, you know what, nobody wants these things, and they would sell it back to Comcast at a deflated, at a phony price, and who knows, maybe these people would be hired then as advisors to Comcast, be put on the payroll there. Because I confronted Mr. Matthews at a focus meeting. I happened to be looking at the government website for where to dispose of household hazardous materials. And I noticed that there was something called the focus meeting on future contract talks with Comcast and the city. And I called up Mike Swick. I said, you know, Mike, I never heard about this. They're having these meetings, and no one's been told about them. And we actually went, we contacted a few people, we went, and I confronted Mr. Matthews, and I told him, I said, you know what? You didn't want anybody to show up to this. And he goes, that's not true. I go, how many PSAs did you put out on GovTV and U-Public? You didn't put any out. So I believe this is as Alan has said, these people are very sophisticated, and they need to be confronted. And if you would go down to City Hall, City Council, and confront these people about, obviously, if they're on an illegal committee violating the Open Meetings Act and writing checks to each other, this needs to be investigated and go, why isn't the DA, why aren't the police looking into this white-collar crime? You need people to go down there and confront our so-called elected representatives.
Well, and Simon, to speak to that as well, what everybody needs to understand is this whole thing got rigged because at the time this went down, we had a Republican majority, 5-4. And what people don't understand is it's not that quote-unquote lost the contract. The Cable Franchise and Hearing Board, who was the proper authority to make the decision, voted unanimously 3-0. The contract should go to quote-unquote. They wrote an amazing document about it. Submitted it to the city, then President and Republican Trudy Jones tabled it indefinitely. They went and got David Turek to go rewrite a new recommendation to give the award to U-Public. So the contract award vote never happened. It's not like quote-unquote was voted out. They tabled it forever. It's never been brought to a vote. So this whole thing was just, they were going to do this like it or not. But guess what? We have a Democrat majority. People like Willard are going to every single council member and spending hours with them. If we can get the 5 Democrats, if we can get an RFP issued and get the 5 Democrats and get one more Republican, it's mayor veto proof. Just so you know, Brad Winter has always regretted his vote because as soon as he voted against us, they stopped getting programming for APS, which he was then involved in. And he took unbelievable, I've talked to the parents, they were furious. Some of their kids were getting scholarships off of the shows that quote unquote was giving them. So the families were furious with him, and he took a lot of heat for taking away that station. So I think we could get someone like Brad Winter on our side on this, and we could be veto proof, and we could get this back, guys.
So my question is, can the city council stop it? I
All they have to do is get the cable board
Yes.
back up and running and issue a new RFP, and I guarantee you, there's no more qualified group than quote-unquote. There's just not. No one else is gonna have the bid that quote-unquote has.
So if that takes place, like you write the RFP, because you probably have to write it for them, and,
Well, no, each bidder submits their request for proposal, like, this is what my vision is, this is what my vision is. Quote unquote, with the fact that they're getting a low-power radio station, they've got, I mean, there's just, I don't think anyone can compete with them. And the thing about quote unquote is, they've always maintained, if there's a better competitor than us, no problem, we're about the community. They were saying that back then. They weren't about, we have to have this. They were like, okay, if somebody comes in who's just better than us, we'll just fold up and partner with them. They weren't even egotistical about it.
so in the meantime, since there seems to be a bunch of different aspects that are going on that has influenced basically the people's, or the hijacking of the People's Channel, so I would recommend, and I think, like, well, I would be on board with this, but if we had groups, right? So I do records for sure. I know Charlie does them. We've gotten fairly decent at it. Doesn't mean we get the records, but so we can do that, and like Open Meetings Act with Baldera. So instead of having him look at the overall problem with public access, we just focus on the records and the open meetings violation, and then get some people going to the Public Regulations Commission, which regulates public utilities like Comcast, start filling out complaints there and like start pushing their hand, in addition to maybe having some suggested pre-scripted email addresses, because it's just a lot easier for people that support something to copy and paste and add a few of their words and then send it off to their city officials. And then, so that way things are just done, right? Because otherwise people don't always know what to do, but they
No,
know they want to do
absolutely.
something. So if we can get a couple of teams together where they're just focused, but all with the main goal, then, you know, we're sort of hitting like all sides, or as many sides as we can.
Well, and for
with the
anybody
resources that we
here,
have.
because we don't have a place, we are each person. So I have volunteered, because I sort of know the most about all the aspects of it, to be the person who's like the point person. So if you folks decide there's a particular aspect you want to take on, like open meetings or getting the RFP going or whatever, my name is Laradale, so it's not Laura with a U, it's
You wanna
Lara.
work on records?
Laradale@hotmail. Just email me, I will send you talking points. If you guys want to start waving hands at council or whatever, I've got so much data on my hard drive. Even if you want some of this documentation that I posted up and you want it sent as PDF so you can have it on file, I've got all of it. I've the Akashic records of this, so please.
So how about we just post everything on the event page, because it could at least get started there, be in digital form,
Cool.
and then wherever they want to draw from, and then we'll just keep that going. And on Facebook, there's a Facebook page called CABQ Gov TV and ABQ Public Access, because again, the city fails to even secure basic things like Facebook. So I created those pages, and so if you would just go on there and like it, and then you know, put all of the all items relating to free speech, public access, stuff like that, or government TV, which is basically again Mike. And
Thank you, Mike, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for always being there for us.
always being there. So, but anyways, maybe we could just put them all there for now, and then until something more formal is done.
Yeah.
But I think me and Charlie are going to work together on the Open Meetings Act and the records. If anybody else would like to volunteer with that, if not,
Awesome.
like it's cool. But we'll start on that.
Cool.
I just got a real quick question. Once you guys get an antenna up for your low-power radio station, what's it gonna take to get it up and running?
Well, what? Oh, yeah, I'm here. Is this on? Yeah, it's on. How long is it gonna take? I don't think it's gonna take very long at all. We just put up some of it already. We're looking at, I think we have to get, well, actually, this man right over here is probably the best person to talk about when that might get done, because he's the one that's working on it with us. So you wanna answer that, or? When it's appropriate, okay.
So as far as,
Okay, all right.
as far as equipment and all that stuff, you guys are all set?
We've got some equipment, but we need some more. That's true.
Well, Don, do you mind just Can we bring you up here?
Yeah.
So everybody knows. No, I'm serious.
got you-
This
got you
is
anyway,
such a
bro.
gift for us, you guys. Don Davis runs the Oasis station, if you don't know him. He knows radio inside and out. He's been doing this for 30 years, at least, I think.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
the one who's helping us get this really going the right way. And he's our point person on all things to do with this. And he's also got a huge soft spot for freedom of speech and public access, which is such a blessing. So kudos to this man.
Thanks, Lara. Well, one thing that I think we can all count on is the next one of these meetings is going to be broadcast live on 102.1 FM. And that is going to change a lot of things in this town. I've been a radio station owner and operator for a very long time. I grew up kind of with radio on the brain. And I'm age 62 now, entered the business at age 13, so been around and just kind of keep showing up like a bad penny. But I love mass media. I find it to be extraordinarily polluted by corporate, well, I don't even want to say corporate because I'm not against corporations, by elite manipulation. When the major TV networks in this country plant family members to work inside the White House, we have a problem. And it's tragic that that is the case in this country today. But I think there's a greater and greater awareness of that problem of government influence on media. And I think what we're experiencing here is kind of a microcosm of a very macro situation across this country. I just went on the website for UPublic. Turns out upublic.tv no longer exists. Right. It goes to UPublic Studios. And on their website, they have pictures of this beautiful plant. I mean, amazing, neat, tidy, state-of-the-art equipment of all kinds. It looks like a very, very well-equipped facility. It would appear that UPublic has turned into essentially a commercial video and audio production facility, and it looks like somebody's pipe dream of a hobby of being in television and audio production is being made real by virtue of the money that's being collected by Comcast on our behalf. Right. And that's just obvious from the website. This sort of thing is just so bad and so rampant in this country, and I'm really glad for this group and these people, you people here. The thing that I see in this group, I'm age 62, and most of the people in this room are, give or take, in that range. We need really to work assertively to bring in younger people to this movement of free media. And I'm hoping that the 102.1 FM station helps do that. I think that there's kind of a coolness to radio that we can use to bring in some new blood, and I really hope and expect that proves to be the case with the new station. Mm-hmm. So here's the situation with KQUQ. It is fully permitted to build today. There is a very solid plan in place to implement the radio station literally in the next few weeks. We were actually trying to get it on in time for the Amy Goodman event. My guess is probably not, Steve, just because of engineering people and stuff that are going on at the other end. But I helped the station get a clear channel. I actually helped two organizations or two entities. Some people I know had a license for 93.7 FM here in town, and the KQUQ signal was also going to be on 93.7. And it would have been a flaming train wreck for everybody, although legal, it's just kind of an accident of FCC allocations. Mm-hmm. So I worked with quote unquote and the other people in concert, and we got a completely clear channel, 102.1 for quote unquote and the new FM station. Nice thing is, somebody mentioned that it was probably going to cover about 6 miles. I don't remember who that was.
Oh, that was
Colleen?
Yeah. Strong signal, yes. In any decent car radio, it'll cover the whole city. And plus, we intend to start at day one streaming online full time.
Right.
So that it has access anywhere to anybody, including mobile phones and that sort of thing, and hopefully without an app. I'm a Google protester because they're just more of the system. So we're excited about getting this thing on. I have a passion for free media. I love all different voices on the radio, on television, in every kind of media. And we've talked about the fact that not everybody agrees on everything. I would love to do hosting of talk programming on the new station to the extent that I'm allowed. And I like asking people difficult questions. Why did you do that? I just want to know this stuff. And it's really fun to do, and it's fun to challenge people, and it's fun to make them angry on the air and get amazing responses from them. Well, you know, what the hell? Let's get after it. Here's the nice thing. Somebody mentioned, Lara, I'm not sure if it was you, Steve, somebody, that this is an FCC licensed station, and at this point in this country, I'm going to use a bad word, you cannot be fucked with in what you put on your radio station. The local government can't stop you. The FCC won't stop you and has been prohibited from doing so by the Supreme Court. They cannot screw with you. There's a couple of KUNM supporters in here. I'm down on those guys. You know why? It's a government radio station. And if you get on there and start slamming the governor, they're not going to give you a very warm welcome next time you come in over there. Yeah. Yeah. And so the nice thing about this is independent. So let's say things go really, really bad and you guys attack the APS board, right? It's on APS property. Guess what? You pick up your toys and your license and you call up Don and you say, how are we going to get this thing on this afternoon somewhere else? And we just do it. In other words, it cannot be defeated. No matter what happens, this thing is alive and will not die. And that's something that's extremely exciting to me. And I think it's going to make a real difference in this town. And it's going to keep people honest. And it's going to be fun. I want to do an electronic dance music show every Saturday night. I'm a huge EDM fan. But let's really enjoy this. Let's use it effectively. Let's make it a real tool for community advancement and awareness, and we hope free thinking. And then just to answer your question, we have figured out an easier way to mount the antenna for the station right on top of the main building over at RFK. So we're going to move that forward very quickly. As soon as that antenna is up, I have a kit of equipment that I'm going to put in on a temporary basis to get the new station on the air, and it's going to be baby steps. It'll be a loop of programming of some kind. At some point, it'll start doing some live programming. As time goes on, I think it'll be the radio version of what, quote unquote, used to be on Channel 27. And where a lot of people generate content that is truly free media, that people can come up with something. The nice thing about doing radio today is this thing right here is a podcast generator. You pointed at people on the street. Why are you out here today? And boom, you've got a radio show. One of the most amazing things I ever experienced is when the Tea Party movement erupted back in, 2009, I guess? And this thing went from non-existent to truly 15,000 people on Montgomery in a 5-week period. It was not funded by anybody. There was nobody in charge. The way I got involved in it, a young woman showed up at my radio station to be interviewed, a 27-year-old with 4 kids, and she was behind this movement and just put this thing together. Boom, it erupted. I would take our wireless live microphone up to people on the street on Montgomery, and I'd say, can I put you on the radio? Yeah. I'd say, why are you here? Oh my God, the things they said were thoughtful, insightful, incredibly brilliant, and real. And it was just very exciting to be involved in that, and that's what I see us collectively doing with the new station. So we have a good plan. We have everything in place to get this thing on the air. It'll be great radio, and I'm really honored to be involved. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Any other questions of anybody?
Just a couple of quick,
Okay.
Quick comments. I've got the mic over here. I didn't see your presence on Wikipedia for either the quote-unquote or public radio, and other than KUNM, of course, and KNME. So maybe that's a good start, is to get the information that you have from your past history out on Wikipedia, so we all can share that to everybody else.
Yeah.
Because without that, we're all talking to each other, and we need a much broader audience. That said, I have a real big problem with listening to hearing this whole skullduggery that's been going on inside of our own government.
Yeah.
That said, since we're a home rule city, the governing on it and oversight is supposed to be internal to this thing. So we're supposed to have our own basic equivalent attorney general to investigate improprieties on the inside. So the question is, who's that? And if they're not doing it because they're part of this overall thing, then of course it gets kicked upstairs. You go back to the state and say, we've got stuff going on here that is illegal in a home rule city, and we want a full investigation.
So here's the deal. I can't tell you how many times I went up to the attorney generals, to the state. I mean, I can't tell the number of times Steve and I drove up to Santa Fe, to PRC, to everybody. I mean, we have done insane legwork on this and zero. So I just feel like at this point, the voice of the people pressuring their council members. The other thing is, we would kill to have some folks who are media savvy who can help us. Steve and I are maxed to the gills. Colleen, I mean, here she is trying to be a mom and a teacher and all this other stuff. The people who are holding this together, we don't even have the time for what we're doing right now. So anybody who can volunteer some time for website or any of that kind of stuff, I'm the go-to person for data, but we need some folks to step up in terms of what are your skills in terms of getting out to the media. We can only do so much, and it's been basically us 3 or 4 for quite some time now, and in between, going up to Santa Fe and trying to get, council, whatever, and still make a living, it's just really, really hard. So one of the reasons we'd like to do this is because we know we have tremendous resources in this community. There's some amazing talent, there's some amazing folks with internet skills, and, young people who are willing to help out. Direct them to us, because we could really use a web presence right now. We could really use what you said, getting on Wikipedia and things like that. We just don't have that kind of, Colleen can't do that. She's got way too much. She could do it, but this woman has taken on so much, and I get so saddened when I have to keep directing stuff at her. So let's try and build some volunteer help here. I think we can get the contract really soon.
Okay, it sounds like you can get the contract, but this other stuff is still, it grates on me just in listening to it.
Sure.
I wish you'd come with me
So
up
the only
to
thing
see what they say.
I can say is that, well, it grated on me when I was a neighborhood association president that our voice was not being heard. And to the point where we just said, hey, we're going to have to take the next step. We're not being listened to by the city's legal section. Our Office of Neighborhood Coordination was basically stonewalling us. This happened under Marty, by the way. And so we decided that Hesiantama, we hired him on as an attorney, and he took the court case. And gee, it's amazing what happens when legal papers are being filed. The press goes all over it, and they get nuts over it, and all of a sudden, exposure. And that's one of the great things about our country. We still have the free media, roughly.
Well, but honestly, we have a legal case going, and it's going nowhere. So we are really stymied. That's why we've taken to the strategy of going to the council, because they're starting to listen. We have a Democratic majority. What they do is just keep bumping the case out. It's now been in the courts.
They've bumped it 3 times now.
A judge will recuse themselves, and the next one, and the next one. We have done everything you can possibly do to make this happen.
Okay, well, it sounds like you just need to get your background history and then post it up and see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But thank you for your concern. It's really appreciated, and for listening and for hearing us through on this. We have an amazing community. That's why our station is one of the best in the country. This is an amazing, friggin' city. Albuquerqueños are amazing people, and particularly the folks sitting in this room. You guys do so much with so little, and that's why I've been fighting for 5 years. As much as I saw great activism in California and New York and working with Greenpeace and stuff, you guys way eclipse them because you have no resources and you still kick booty. So I know we can win this, and I just feel like let's just stay educated. Let's reach out every time you feel like there's a resource, a web person. If you want me to give you talking points for the council, I am right there for it. I can give you all kinds of data. We can do this, and I think we can do it really quickly. The council is rapidly changing its mind about what they think happened. Willard's doing a tremendous job with them, but it's, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard the thing about the 100th monkey, but it's an interesting story,
Yeah,
which is you don't have to change everybody's mind. You just have to change that core percentile, and it just explodes. And I feel like we are this close to that core percentile, especially seeing as many of you here tonight as we see. This number of people could be the tipping point.
Just along those same lines, I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but a while back, when all this happened, I got a call from a PR organization for Comcast saying, why don't you like about Comcast and everything? And I went on and on and on about Comcast's name basically is dirt in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's mud. So as you noticed, he went back to Comcast and said, I know it costs too much money to change your name, but why don't you, what program are you running right now? It's called Infinity? Okay, well just emphasize Infinity. So right now you see Infinity trucks going down the street. You get your bill in the mail, it says Infinity, and on the very small type on the bottom says Comcast. Because, you know, they know their name is basically dirt in this.
Well, and the other thing everybody needs to understand, this was something I learned very deeply in the Bay Area. There was an amazing seminar in Silicon Valley, and there's this older gentleman who had the history of computers with him. I do not remember his name, but he got up in front of this rowdy audience full of all these young computer programmers who were billionaires and all this stuff, and he basically said, guys, limited bandwidth is almost over. We're going to be infinite soon. I know you don't want to hear this. I know you didn't want me to say this, but that idea that there's only so much real estate and only Comcast and whoever owns it is about this close to being, we are the code guys that are writing all this stuff and all the things that are going on in Silicon Valley right now, plus the fiber technology. So that's another thing we might have in our favor is the fact that if we can get this going soon enough, that actual real estate will completely lose value. And we can get this whole thing back and get back our community. So let's just look at this idea that there's a whole lot of things with momentum building here behind us. It's not just us pushing rocks up. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that could just steamroll this really, really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
It seems to me we should start meeting once a month. Or twice a month. You know,
Talk to the lady here.
No, just meet on a regular basis to update on what's happening.
Sure.
Absolutely.
That's what's needed now. This is the time to start doing it.
I also, one of the things I think that was important, that would be important, that I would like to do with our board and with the community is maybe create an advisory board because one of the things that we need to address that I think is really important is policy. Policy and how programs are created. I think it would be great, like if a certain segment of time, you know, by policy we created so that neighborhood associations had that time spot or something along those lines. But before those policies are set, I feel like a needs analysis would be a great way to bring the community together to find out what the community really needs and maybe to like prioritize that and then to create policy based on the findings for our community. And through that whole process of the needs assessment and creating those policies, that's also a way for us to really embed ourselves in the community of the South Valley and also just to make people in Albuquerque aware of us as a resource. So I would like to have support from volunteers on that because as a board we can only meet so many times and it's hard for us to get together as a board because like everybody's busy. But if we have another advisory board that is able to help us with some of these things, I think that would be really important and helpful.
Talking about specifically the radio?
For the radio, or even just for quote unquote in general, because if we get the TV channels back, then that's another aspect we'll be handling. but they're kind of two different beasts.
Yeah.
And so programming for a channel and programming for the radio, I think, might be a little bit different.
It would be, yeah.
Did anybody mention the fact that before we were taken off the air, we were seventh we were rated seventh in the country?
No.
Fifth.
It was 5.
Oh,
Number
okay.
5.
Right. Yeah, or whatever. Anyway, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure.
They always had more stations. They all had 5 or 6 stations. We only had 1. And we didn't have the resources.
Right.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Quote unquote is the little station that could. That's what I call us. We're like 250,000 for 2 channels.
Yeah.
Rick Metz is getting, he just got us. And get one more to make it veto proof with the mayor, I know we can get the station back, and I know quote unquote is just going to have it running immediately. I mean, the producers are out there.
And not to give you personally more to do, but since you and Willard are the ones that have your fingers on the pulse with the council,
Yeah.
it would be, I think, a good tactic and helpful for us if we have follow-up talking points that you want us to take to the counselors
And that's what I'm
after
saying.
Willard has.
I am here giving you my email address, and as soon as one of you wants to show up at the council and have some talking points, I will give you the whole, tight list of what I want you to say, and absolutely.
Hi, since you're compiling our email list, can you email us the talking points? Because a lot of us have, been involved with different activist groups. I have close to 500 friends on Facebook. I've got a community Facebook page. I probably still have an old list of close to 300 contacts from my prior activist experience. I would love to disseminate this to everybody, and I know a huge percentage of those people are involved with other groups. And for the Oasis producer engineer, I know on AM it seems that certain programs can be interfered with, but is FM relatively free from any interference or jamming? Okay, I know that AM radio, like when I listen to 1350, sometimes it seems to be jammed with or interfered by another station. Is that FM channel that you're talking about, is that free of interference and obstruction?
Generally speaking, by comparison, even though the station doesn't have a lot of power, it has a very, very clear channel. So it may be difficult to receive, for example, on a radio inside a structure right here because of the terrain in the way between us and RFK. But generally, it should be pretty solid to most car radios, and of course, it will be streaming online all the time. Yeah. So there's the complete building penetration. Yeah. Well, yeah, if you want a station jammed, I know how to do that. But generally speaking, no. No, it should be very clear and consistent. Where you can receive it, it should be reliable, and where you can't, it'll be reliably not able to be received.
Yeah. Okay, well, you guys please contact me. I do have hours to help out volunteering.
Okay.
PSA.
We will be doing that.
I go to city council quite a bit. I'd be glad to put like a flyer with, the radio station's address and hours of operation.
Let me tell you the best advertising I've ever done. In commercial radio, more listeners equal more revenue. In non-commercial radio, more listeners mean more influence. So what we want is more listeners.
Yeah,
so back in the day, I started an oldie station in 2005, and I spent $35,000 on Clear Channel outdoor billboards, and I had some really nice billboard locations. And I spent that $35,000 in 2 months, and at the end of 4 months, my ratings were 0 with those billboards, right? So then I started a talk station in 2009. And I spent $35,000 on Comcast cable advertising on the 5 news channels. Well, over 2 months, $35,000. In 4 months, I had a 0 in ratings. What changed my life is I have a guy who's I kind of took him under my wing. He's semi-homeless. And he goes out at intersections with a yellow sign about that big that has 3 lines of great big black print. Listen to my radio station. Ratings have gone like that. So if we can get volunteers to go out right over here on Central, hold up the sign, said, listen now, 102.1 FM, it'll change everybody's lives.
I've been talking like with Diana here, and we were thinking about, Diana, that we would like to, because of City Council's 2-minute limit, we were thinking about doing something live during City Council or just after it, and we wanted to say that we would ask those of you who haven't had any your questions answered or addressed at City Council, that
I would do a live broadcast from the hallway right outside.
That's what we.
Hell yes.
That's what we.
First of all, they can't tell you not to do it.
Yes.
Second, it's technically incredibly easy and feasible.
Great.
And third, I think that's the kind of insurgent broadcasting that'll make a difference.
Yeah, but that's what we want to do. That's what
Yeah.
we've been talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank
Let
you.
her rip.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, just paint 102.1 on everybody's forehead, you know.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, you stayed way past the limit, and thank you so much, everybody. Please, again, Lara Dale at Hotmail. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yes.
Thanks to Dinah and Ilza. Thank you, thank you, thank you for giving us this opportunity. Bless you.
Yeah, really.